All right, gentlemen, we've been through the rules in the locker room. I want you to obey my commands at all time. I want you to protect yourselves at all time.
Not every UFC fighter takes a loss in stride. Although the majority are pretty okay and humble about taking a loss, others just cannot take it and often react in a certain way, deeming them sore losers. UFC is one of the major sporting events that brings in millions upon millions of viewers worldwide. That is why when you see a fighter acting out after he has just lost a fight, it can often be very memorable as all eyes are on him. In today's video, we're going to cover some of the sorest losers in UFC history. But before we get into the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you don't miss any of the new videos we post. Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero is a Cuban-born professional mixed martial artist and former freestyle wrestler. At the main event at UFC 248, Yoel Romero and middleweight champ Israel Adesanya went up against each other. It was a pretty boring fight with a total of 88 strikes throughout the whole match. To make it even worse, Romero stood in the middle of the octagon for 2 minutes covering himself while the crowd shouted and booed him. Since the fight was so lackluster, the judges were hesitant to crown anyone victorious, but the win ultimately went to Adesanya. Following the fight, Romero was full of every excuse in the book, stating that it was Adesanya who was off his game and blamed him for the boring inactivity in the ring. Now, we know this isn't true, and it was actually Romero that took a beating and performed significantly worse than he normally does. However, the fact that he blamed it on his opponent after losing just shows how much of a sore loser he was being. TJ Dillashaw versus everyone. We had to put TJ Dillashaw against everyone because it's hard to pick out just one instance where he has been a sore loser. One of his most notable sore loser moments came after he lost a match to Henry Cejudo. TJ always talks a massive game before a fight, which often can make the loss more embarrassing, which may explain why he tries so hard to edge around the loss he just took. In this match, Cejudo dropped TJ multiple times and TKO'd him in little over 30 seconds into the first round. As you can already imagine, TJ did not take the loss very well at all. In his post-fight interviews, he immediately started to say that he didn't lose, and instead he claimed that the fight was taken from him because of the crappy stoppage. Now, some may chalk this up to just post-game emotions, but even after a few days, he continued to say the same things, pushing the narrative that he didn't lose and it wasn't his fault he lost, but it was the referee's fault. He claimed he was still the superior fighter. He said, "Obviously, I was furious. I was. I mean, a 30-second fight when I know I'm the better fighter, it's just rough to swallow. If anybody's been in my situation or just competing in general, you know what that's like. If we fight that fight 100 times, I will win 99 of them. This, unfortunately, was that one fight. I'm not going to swallow this one very well. It's a tough one for me. I was very serious about that, especially when I have the UFC doctors telling me it's an early stoppage. You had Dana White talking about it as an early stoppage. It just sucks, man. There's no other way to really put it. But at least TJ is aware and admits he doesn't take the loss very well, stating, "Let's be honest, I never said I wasn't a sore loser. That's not a guess about me. I let my emotions get the best of me. That's why I'm so competitive, and that's why I am who I am." However, in my opinion, he needs to seriously try and change his behavior when taking a loss. There really is no excuse, and it turns out just being even more embarrassing than taking the loss. Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman. Colby Covington is next on our list of sore losers. Covington is an American professional MMA fighter and is currently signed with the UFC. Covington was on an impressive 7-match winning streak when he headed into his title fight against Kamaru Usman and was very vocal about how he was bound to win and was trashing his opponent. The fight was extremely close. You couldn't tell who was going to win until Covington was TKO'd in the last round. Immediately after he lost, he ran out of the arena and continued to blame the referee for what he believed to be an early stoppage, strongly believing that it was 2 against 1 during that fight and the referee was on Usman's side all along, which is obviously not true. When asked in an interview about his thoughts on the fight, he had this to say. "It was 2 against 1 that bleeping night, December 14th at UFC 245, Covington said. It wasn't a one-on-one. I got robbed of a one-on-one fair fight. That bleeping made a clear difference in that fight, and if Marty Fake Newsman didn't have that bleeping ref, I'd be world champion right now. I'm going to get my bleeping rematch, and it's going to be a different story. What could be more wrong and corrupt that somebody could do that? For people not to see it and be clearly not biased about their opinion is absolutely pathetic. Just look at the facts. Look at the video. That fight was fixed, and that was clear enough that they need to do a rematch. Although we understand how frustrating it must be to be so close to the title and having it snatched away, working within the UFC or any professional sport for that matter, you need to play fair and win and lose fairly too. Nick Diaz versus GSP. Nick Diaz is an American MMA professional and has been fighting in the UFC for some time now. It's no secret that Diaz doesn't take losing too well. Everyone is now aware of it, as it has occurred that many times. It is very rare for Diaz to admit to losing a fight and taking it on the shoulders. However, the most memorable of these sore losing moments for Diaz came when he was up against George St. Pierre, who ended up being victorious and defending his UFC welterweight title. Following the fight, Diaz raised multiple excuses, all of which were completely untrue, the first of which being that St. Pierre was taking performance-enhancing drugs during the fight, and that he had missed the weight at the weigh-ins. Diaz claimed that St. Pierre had illegal hand wraps during the fight. Recently, all this drama between the fighters resurfaced when Diaz was asked if he would potentially get in the ring with St. Pierre again. His response was to reiterate all his old issues with St. Pierre, that he had obviously made up. He even went as far to say that St. Pierre had poisoned him before the match. Right? It is mind-blowing to the extent to which some of these wrestlers will go to never admit defeat, even after they have clearly lost the fight. Paul Daly versus Josh Koscheck. Paul Daly is next up on our list, and for a good reason. Paul Daly and Josh Koscheck were set to fight at UFC 113. After being out-grappled for 3 consecutive rounds by Koscheck, Daly threw a cheap shot well after the bell had sounded, meaning the fight was over. It was probably one of the worst acts the Octagon and UFC have seen, with UFC's president Dana White instantly banning him from ever competing in that promotion ever again. Daly is known for his unruly temper, and during this match it really showed. When asked about his opinion on the event and if he regretted it, he had this to say: I do, but, you know, everything happens for a reason. I'm here now in New York, and yeah, I feel great. As you can tell, he really doesn't regret his decision that much. And we would be surprised if he ever apologized to Koscheck. When asked why he threw that low blow, he responded with, you know, it was a very frustrating fight to be in. I wasn't thinking much. I sort of had flashback to my old days, and I just thought, this guy's punked me out on national TV. I just have to get my own back. So I did, and it didn't work out very well. It was back and forth. He'd say something, I'd say something. I think the final thing that was said, I said, when this is done, when I get up, I'm gonna hit you. And I don't think he believed me. I told him that. He'll tell you that. I stick to my word. Tim Kennedy versus Yoel Romero. Tim Kennedy and Yoel Romero were set to fight in UFC 178 matchup. It was a good fight and a close fight, but Romero was ultimately crowned the winner. Now, unlike the other mentions in this video, the sore loser comment isn't actually like the rest and actually makes sense. During the fight, Romero repeatedly tried to get more time than the allocated 1 minute fighters get between rounds. As you can imagine, this angered Kennedy quite a lot and probably stopped him from winning the fight, as Romero had more time to rest and prepare for the following round. Post-fight, Kennedy had a few harsh words to say to Romero backstage. The interaction went as follows. Romero said to one of his coaches, I want to talk to him. Tim? To which Tim responded, what? If you can't get off the stool, that's the end of the fight. Kennedy continued to voice his displeasure about the situation, but unfortunately, it was difficult to understand due to the background noise. It is understandable why Kennedy would be so annoyed and mad that Romero was getting a significantly longer rest period between rounds, as he could have won that fight over Romero due to Romero's poor stamina. And sadly, that is all that we could fit in today's video. But if you enjoyed it, don't forget to give this video a huge thumbs up and subscribe so you never miss any more of our content.